Sutton wraps up a hat-trick of titles, Josh cooks up a late title charge, and Tom and Jake fall off the hill.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast, and we finally have another three-time champion, Ash Sutton.
First one since Shedden? Or has Turkey done it more recently? There's a question.
Shedden, I think. Possibly.
2012, Shedden got his third one, didn't he?
Yeah.
Maybe Turkey in 2014, actually.
Possibly. Anyway,
Sutton.
Sutton.
Looks that up first.
Sutton, three-time champion.
Yeah.
We always knew it was going to happen, didn't we?
Well, those who read my very interesting article might not have thought it was going to happen. It's good to see you've still read that one done.
Ah, dear. Did you enjoy your weekend down there?
Yes. On the whole, I'm glad we stayed the night, as the M25 was apparently a pig on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Stayed in an interesting place.
Interesting's one word for it.
Trying to get food on a Saturday night in Dartford
God.
proved to be...
What pub doesn't have a kitchen open on a Saturday night?
When two unlocal people walk in, I think suddenly it's immediately closed, isn't it?
Yeah. We ended up having a nice curry, though.
It was very nice.
Very nice curry.
Except apart from me mistaking or thinking in my vegetable jalfrezi that I was eating broad beans, I was actually eating chili fingers. But there we go.
Whole chilies. Did they repeat on you?
I'm still feeling them now.
Still feeling them. Good. Well, a fantastic weekend of racing. A good weekend of racing. How did you see it?
Race 1 was really boring.
Yeah.
And then it sort of came alive from there. Race 1 was a case of everybody was feeling each other out. Nobody wanted to take off the title protagonist, and obviously by race 3,
shackles were off.
Yeah, everything had been decided by then, so it was BTC of the old. It was a good weekend. I think that overall it's been quite a dull season because I think Sutton's had this one since about round 4.
The margin of victory at the end of the season, and we'll get to it in race 3 with obviously Turkington not finishing, but the margin makes it look even worse, or does it actually justify how dominant he's been?
It justifies how dominant he's been. I mean, he's scored in all but one race.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's mega, isn't it?
What more can you say? I mean, when we do the full season review, I will look into whether it is the biggest points gap in history. It certainly feels like it is.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the last time it was done into race 3.
No, and to have that sort of lead coming into this final round, yes, you speculated about him being in a difficult position, but when he was...
You sound informed. Have you read an article on this?
But when you saw him in qualifying, and he qualified ahead of all his title challengers, apart from Cook, who we sort of guaranteed wasn't in it anyway.
No, he wasn't. I mean, by his own admission, he wasn't in it.
Yeah, exactly. So he's qualified ahead of everyone else with full ballast on board, and...
Imagine how good he'd be if there's a championship on the line every weekend, because his qualifying's been... I wouldn't say it's let him down, but it's been his, quote, weakest part of his season. And then when it really matters, you say out-qualifies everybody, apart from the man who needs to get pole and all 3 wins to have a chance.
Yeah, speaking about qualifying, I think we should get into a more detailed look at it. Qualifying report. Going into qualifying on Saturday afternoon then, it was a dry session, a little bit cold. The wind was certainly blowing. It was again on Sunday as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, but particularly during race 3, the wind picked up.
Certainly did. And it was Senna Proctor who snatched pole position from his teammate. Now, crucially, if Cook had got pole, he was still on with that finest of chances to take the championship. He needed all 67 points of the available 67.
He did.
And Senna taking the pole off of him meant that there are only 66 left, and he would struggle.
What do you do if you Proctor? I mean, you don't know Cook's time, presumably.
Yeah.
What do you do?
It's difficult, isn't it? Whereas you go into the race, okay, BTC have locked out the front row. They needed it for championships and constructors and stuff like that.
Let's be honest, coming into this weekend, Cook winning the title wasn't their priority because it required such a, as I said earlier in the bit before, Sutton scored points in all but one race this year.
Yep.
The chance of him not scoring 3 times was so low that unless he had a test for COVID and therefore couldn't race, the chance of Cook winning it was so remote that they'd have been focusing on trying to secure the team's title and independence title away from Sutton and Laser Tools. So, yeah, I don't think there wouldn't have been any tears shed. I don't think that Proctor took the pole ahead of Cook personally.
No, Proctor keeping up his pace from what we've seen this season. Always seems to have good showing in qualifying. Now we know that he's always been at a slight weight benefit because of him being that little bit further behind in the championship. But could we see this continue into next season?
Well, I was going to say, it makes you wonder where he would have been in the championship hunt had he raced the full season. I know you meant the weight point, but obviously he had to come into Snetterton with nearly full weight on board for the
New entry.
New entry. That's the word. Look, thank you. New entry penalty, which is absolutely crazy. But there we go. That's another rule I'd change. What a joke.
Yeah. Honda, though, were looking extremely strong. Obviously taking the front row and third and fourth with the Halfords Racing Cataclean duo.
We should have seen it coming.
Rowbottom and Shedden.
We should have seen it coming, really. It don't work in the heat. It was cold.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, they just seem to be just that step above everyone else, didn't they?
Yeah, though Dan Lloyd, I mean, where's he found this form from? I mean, put it in a bottle and sell it, mate, because...
I wonder if it's the painkillers that he's taking for his back.
Possibly. I mean, he's just been incredible. A really good qualifying performance from him. I mean, there's a point where he looked like he might take pole. Obviously, in the end, that didn't come. But he was putting some really strong laps together, and he's 0.1 seconds off pole.
Yeah. Yeah,
took Vauxhall.
Took fifth on the grid ahead of the Laser Tools racing duo of Ash Sutton and Aidan Moffat. Aidan Moffat again doing that team job of backing up Ash where he needs to, and most importantly, he got in between him and Turkington.
Yeah, it gives Sutton a bit of protection going into turn one, that if Turkington tries anything, then Moffat will pop the pressure back onto Collins' shoulders.
Yep, line astern once again, BMWs behind that of Turkington and Jelly. And then also Tom Chilton, who's best qualifying of the year.
Yeah, I mean, out of the bag completely. He's been nowhere all season, and then a top 10 qualifying finisher. He's been on the cusp of the top 10 a couple of times. I think back to the sprint race at Silverstone, where he was on the cusp, wasn't he, of the top 10. For whatever reason, he seemed to get it together this weekend, and he has a habit really of doing well at the last event of the season.
Yeah,
you look back at his stats, he does seem to suddenly wake up for the last event.
As qualifying finished, this meant that Turkington would claim the Goodyear Wingfoot Award
but that's made his season.
For the best qualifier throughout the season, retaining the honour that he also won last year.
Woohoo!
It's another trophy for him.
Yeah.
It's the only one he's going to get.
It's a charity shield for me. It's.
You didn't like the look of the trophy either, did you?
As I said before, that going into things we change in the future, pods, etc. I think it's the most pointless competition that we've seen in motorsport for a long time.
Okay.
What's the point of rewarding qualifying when they've all got different cars and they've all got to carry different levels of weight?
Yep.
And he's in a rear-wheel drive car that carries the weight, so immediately he's going to do well. And the fact that Jake Hill is second tells you, how well Hill's done as a season. But I mean, big whoop.
There might be changes next year. You never know.
Yeah, but with the previous Dunlop Forever Forward Award, you go, I've won this because I've done the most overtakes in the season. You go, oh, you're a race driver. Most overtakes in the season. That's good. That's what motorsport's about. Well done. Good. You're good in race conditions. Excellent to see. This is, I can go fast for one lap.
Would you like to see something more like they do in F1 where they get a tyre for pole position?
No.
No?
No.
No? Okay, lovely.
I think, well, personally, too much is put on qualifying. When you look at the touring cars, first to 25th is separated by a second. It could literally be balls out of a jar.
Yep.
Or bowl even.
There's an idea. Balls out of a hat.
I'll have Jodie Kidd do it every week. Turkson gets pole every week, but I mean,
come on, don't bring up those things.
Seriously, it's between first and 25th. It's often by less than a second. So really, in F1, it's a slightly bigger gap. I grant you.
Yep.
Here, it's such a small gap. What does qualifying really show? Really?
Well,
is Lloyd a worse driver than Turkington? Just on the fact he was behind him. Well, that's not a good example this weekend. Is Lloyd a worse driver than Cook? Just on the qualifying because he's 0.1 second off the pole.
Or because, well, yeah.
What's it prove? Because Lloyd is not a better driver than Cook.
It's a way to set a grid, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a means to an end.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the point of rewarding it. Reward the race. That makes much more sense.
Yeah.
But you can get oddities in qualifying where you get people come. I mean, Plato at Donington. Is he a better driver than the people he out-qualified at the minute? No.
No, I agree.
Thank you.
Lovely. Shall we move on to race 1?
Yes.
Race 1.
Well, we should be able to get race 1 out of the way pretty quickly because Cook won. Right, race 2.
Yeah, it was
Wasn't
a
the
little
greatest.
processionary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Proctor led them off well, had a good start, and he let Cook past into Druids. That's pretty much the only overtake I can really remember in this race.
Yeah, I like how on the BTCC website it says slicing past his team. He let him through.
Yes.
He let him through.
Although why, I don't really understand, because Cook... I suppose if Cook had won that race, and race 2 and race 3, he'd have been level on points, and on count back he might have won.
Yeah, that was a possibility, I think.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
It was an interesting opening to the race. People all settled into their positions, and probably from first to about 12th, no one really made any moves and didn't want to do anything wrong, did they?
No, I mean, for Sutton, he was where he needs to be. He knew he was scoring points. It was fairly simple for him to stay where he was.
Turkington managed to get past Moffat on the start, didn't he? And then was sat in behind Sutton, and the top 6 kind of split away, didn't they?
Yeah, they managed to get their head up the road, and just throughout the entire race, Turkington didn't really put any sort of pressure on Sutton. It was quite meek. I know obviously there was the weight issue on board, but Turkington wasn't a lighter car, of course, and I think he sort of looked up his inside once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
It was just so meek for someone who knew he had to get past Sutton at all costs. It just seemed quite a meek performance.
The first safety car of the weekend was seen in race 1. Came about 4 or 5 laps in when there was a coming together, a scuffle between
Punt is the word you're looking for.
between Jade Edwards and guess who, Andy Neat once again. Those two seem to have magnets in their bumpers that only attract to each other.
Edwards was 100% in the wrong for this one, by the way.
Yes,
though.
she was.
As funny as it is, and what have you. Neat, who has announced his retirement. This was his final, his swan song in the touring cars. He has retired before, of course.
Swan song. Oh, I can't even say it.
No.
That's a strong statement.
Well, it's his final weekend.
Yes, final weekend.
To be fair to him, he didn't do an awful lot wrong this weekend. The Edwards incident was unfortunate. It was 100% on Jade, and she was reprimanded after the race.
Yeah, she gave him a little nudge going up into Druids, and he ended up in the gravel, which they snatched under the safety car.
Yep.
And then sort of like got the field going again. It allowed most of the drivers to close up once again, but nothing really happened after that, did it?
No, I mean, Cook obviously controlled the race from the front. Proctor was his rear gunner. I was surprised Shetland didn't really give it more of a go. Couldn't really seem to get close enough to do it. Rowbottom held well. Lloyd held his position particularly well. And as I said before, Turkington just looked so meek in trying to get past Sutton.
Yeah, Lloyd had managed to get past Rowbottom in the early stages. Jelly, he was the main issue in race 1.
He had a wobble.
He did have, his car had a wobble.
Yeah.
I think it was 4 laps from the end. It came past us and it was sounding rough as anything.
Yeah.
And he was just falling back through the field. It turns out there was an electrical gremlin that caused a misfire on the car, obviously not giving him the power that he needed. So much for that M performance. But yeah, he fell back all the way to 23rd.
Well, I think what they were trying to do was to channel his car's energy to Turkington's to try and get a little bit higher up, but that didn't work either.
No, it didn't. Apart from that, some other good performances. Jackson finished 10th in race 1.
Yeah, strong.
He went on to have a fairly strong weekend.
I think the surprising race one was Butcher, who obviously started 19th and only finished 16th in a car with, yes, some weight on board, but not masses. Just didn't really seem on the pace at all. He was stuck in a battle pack for most of the race and disappointing.
Yeah, Morgan was well outdone by Chilton, who managed to hold his own up in 9th. Morgan finished 14th in the end, having qualified 16th. Smelt showed some good pace.
Yeah,
Better.
better.
Made up 3 positions. But, yeah, it was a bit of a lacklustre race 1, wasn't it?
It was. Hill and Ingram tried to make progress on where they were to keep their championship hopes alive, but because they finished 11th and 13th, it meant that they could no longer challenge Sutton for the crown. So after race 1, it just became a 2-horse affair, with obviously Cook falling away as well, mathematically speaking.
Yep. We'll get on to race 2 now. Race 2. Moving into race 2 then, and all hell broke loose really on the opening lap, didn't it?
Well, in comparison to race 1, yeah, absolutely.
They all got off to a fairly even start. Lloyd had a really, probably the best start of the top 5.
Oh, I disagree. I thought he had a really slow start. Sutton got into the back of him.
Well, that kind of helped him, didn't it?
Well, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I suppose he bogged down a little bit because Sutton had the demon start on rear-wheel drive and then found himself boxed in and nudged the back of him a little bit.
Yeah, nudged Lloyd going into paddock. Lloyd thought, okay, I'll just go around the outside. He was up the outside into Druids, and now there may have been a little touch.
Yeah, it's
there
hard
may
to
have
tell.
been. There was definitely a lock-up from Proctor.
Or puncture, possibly.
Or puncher, and maybe out on the marbles slightly, but he locks up and goes straight off into the barrier at Druids, pretty much where Andy Neate went off in race 1.
Yeah.
And that was his race done. It meant that Lloyd, though, was able to get up into second round the outside.
And he did keep the place. There was no punishment afterwards.
Nope.
Obviously, you can't reverse them like you would do at Donington with Shetland and Ingram ones in the wall. Again, just furthering our point about how fast the push-to-pass rule is. Although, it's, as I say, it's not clear if Lloyd did contest him. I think it's a mixture. It's a little from column A, a little from column B.
Yeah,
probably a little touch.
The touch is minor at most.
And I think Proctor's probably already locked up before the touch, and the touch just helped him along his way a little bit personally.
Yeah. Moving down towards Graham Hill Bend, they were all still battling amongst each other. Chilton was well in it amongst it, wasn't he?
He was. He was a cat amongst the pigeons.
Battling with Turkington, Moffat, Sutton.
Yeah, round all those sort of areas. Yeah, exactly that.
Everyone. And going into Surtees onto the back straight.
Well, Turkington got past Sutton by this point, of course, because he got him into Paddock Hill Bend.
Yes.
Which was, of course, vital for Turkington, who had to outscore Sutton by 11 points in race 2 to be able to keep the challenge going.
Yeah, heading into the corner leading onto the GP circuit then, Chilton was still battling decided to stick an ambitious move, shall I say, up the inside of Ollie Jackson.
Yeah, if you've watched police programmes, it's akin to the police arriving at 3 a.m. with a battering ram to politely knock on the door to ask you to come outside and answer a few questions. It was a ridiculous move, in my view.
Yeah, he was half on the grass trying to get up the inside of Ollie Jackson. He spun Ollie Jackson round. Ollie Jackson managed to do a full 360 before actually getting hit by...
He's unlucky. He's done everything right, Jackson.
Yeah, he has. Gets hit first by Oliphant or Morgan. They were both about the same sort of time, which sent those two sort of like careering off.
Completely broke Oliphant's front suspension.
Yeah, broke Oliphant's front suspension, who narrowly avoided getting collected again by Ingram.
Yeah.
And then Ingram got minorly touched by Morgan.
Who's at that point the car was broken by him, yeah.
Yeah. And that sent Ingram all the way down to 23rd, I believe.
Yeah, so he'd already taken evasive action, and then whilst taking evasive action, he was hit by Morgan, who was out of control because his car had been broken by the incident. So, Chilton happened. That's
Chilton definitely did happen. And that put 3 drivers, well, including Proctor, 4 drivers out on the first laps. And, of course, safety car.
Yes.
Because there were a lot of stricken cars. However, there's a little bit of controversy on how the race was restarted. Do we want to get into it?
I have to say, I think the level of decision-making this year has been appalling.
Yeah, at times.
At times. You've heard my rants before about snatch or heavy vehicles on track under yellows, which is, to me, the most ridiculous thing I've seen in racing for a long time.
Yep.
And then this little affair happens where the safety car's lights went out about...
So late.
Perhaps
late.
the interclearways they went out.
Yeah.
With marshals and recovery vehicles still on the track.
Well, the thing is, first of all, none of the drivers behind the safety car had that time to back up the field.
To bunch up, no.
Cook was still at the front, and because the lights went out so late, he couldn't slow the pack down and decide when he wanted to go.
No.
He almost had to go straight away, which caught everyone else out. And they were sort of like in groups of 3 at the front, weren't they?
Yeah. It's like Noah's Ark.
And coming round through the first lap, coming out of Graham Hill Bend, I pointed out to you that there were still yellow flags going on. Now, we couldn't see that further around the corner, there was still a light recovery vehicle and marshals on the track trying to make sure that Oliphant's car was safe.
Yeah. So they're about to have cars bundling past them at racing speed.
Albeit through a yellow flag zone.
Yeah, and drivers respect flags like what?
Yep.
And you'd have thought as well, with the very sad accident Brands has already had this year.
Yeah.
And I think Matt Neal summed it up perfectly on Twitter, is that, to paraphrase, if a driver puts 1 foot out of line, they get the rule book thrown at them. Yet, nobody is responsible for this, and I think he used the phrase, the BTC has a big carpet to brush things under.
Yes.
And I share his frustration, because, we have to keep the marshals safe. One more lap behind safety car wouldn't have made any difference in the world. There was no need to call... So, again, it's the lateness of the call. Just do another lap. At that point, do another lap. What does it matter? Because you can then put the lights out at paddock, so everybody knows for a whole lap then that this is the last lap. Everyone can start to back up, and everybody can start to prepare for a full restart. And it's the lateness. It's just absolutely crazy.
I don't know.
The TV cameras weren't ready.
No, they weren't.
Tim wasn't ready. David wasn't ready. It wasn't their fault. I mean, we laugh at some of the stuff that happens in the commentary box, but it wasn't their fault either. The TV director wasn't ready. The commentators weren't ready. The drivers weren't ready. The marshals weren't ready. The only person that was ready was the guy in the control room. We went, yeah, now it's the time.
Yeah, they were still showing replays, weren't they?
Yeah.
And it's
because you got 3 cars stricken. Because there's discussion, could Oliphant stay where he was because he'd managed to get himself to the bit that normally links, that you normally go round to go to clearways. So he was out the way, he was between barriers, so he was probably out the way enough to be safe. So, okay, he might not need to recover his car, fine. But he still had Morgan, Oliphant, who we said was okay, and Jackson to recover. It was going to be a fairly substantial safety car period. I just don't understand the need to get restarted so quickly.
I think Matt Neal's actually taken that tweet down now. Oh no, here you go. What the stricken cars still on track, safety vehicles on track, marshals on foot on track, and suddenly it's go go go. Hashtag Muppets Show.
Yeah.
Which kind of agree with. But yes, the race got back underway anyway, and drivers were still battling to the hilt, weren't they? Turkington was trying to make as much progress as possible, and he managed to close up on the back of Rowbottom and put a lovely move, to be fair, into paddock.
Yeah, when Turkington's on it, he's really good.
Yep.
He's a really good driver, there's no doubt about it. Just didn't do enough this weekend.
No, he didn't. And so, apart from that, Ingram made up 1 position. Hill made up 2 positions. I know they're out in the title hump by then, but
no weight on board.
They didn't have any weight on board, so why do you think they were struggling?
I think perhaps because they knew the title had gone. What is there to carry on?
Yeah, fair enough.
Realistically, what's the point? What's the best you can hope for a second in the championship with the guys are ahead of you, are far ahead of you. Cook's going to win the race. Turkington is possibly going to get a podium. What are you racing for at that point?
Yeah, that's fair.
And also there'd probably be a twinge of disappointment as well. As much as Hill would have known coming into the weekend that it was probably
unlikely
beyond him.
Yeah.
I felt that way when my football team plays a much superior team. I still feel a bit sad when we lose. As you probably do most weeks.
Thanks. I knew that was coming. we don't need to talk about football.
I find it quite funny Brands is near Watford.
Moffat was one to have a spin after the safety car.
With some assistance.
A little bit of assistance.
Lots of assistance. Talking of stupid moves, this is worse than Chilton's in my mind.
Yes, same. Butcher gets an excellent run through paddock.
Yeah, he does.
Looks for a move up the inside into Druids.
But you can't overtake on the grass. That's kind of a key aspect of motorsport.
Yeah. Moffat looks to close the door quite sharpish.
Well, I think he moved across gradually, and Butcher would have seen the space was running out.
Well, the thing is, Moffat, in my eyes, has closed the door fairly quickly. Butcher's not alongside him at that point.
He's not. No.
And then he's taken to the grass and is completely out of control, certainly for a second or two.
Yeah.
all locked up at the rear, car sliding left into a right-hander.
Take it for someone who sat on the grass all day, it wasn't dry.
You regretted that, didn't you?
I should have taken a chair. Lessons were learned.
It was a silly move. It put Moffat wide into Druids.
Yeah.
And it didn't really.
He
benefit him.
then either suffered a puncture or a broken toe link, didn't he? It wasn't quite clear which
I'm
way.
pretty sure it was a puncture. So coming down into Graham Hill Bend, he then went to turn left into there, and the car wanted to completely spin round on him. And it was either the tyre was coming off the rim at that point, or had punctured before that.
Which meant he took out an unsuspecting Smiley.
Yes.
Who, in his defence, had done nothing wrong at all.
Nope, not at all.
Just got collected, and then Jelly. Did Jelly get caught
Yeah,
as well?
Yeah, Jelly went then into the side of Moffat lightly, but caused damage on his front end.
Yeah.
At this point, Jelly had an excellent recovery, going from 23rd to about sort of like 10th at that point.
Yeah, around about that point.
And then managed to finish the race in 9th, which was an excellent drive for him, and some of the speed that he's shown this year.
I just think that move by Butcher sums up Butcher, doesn't it?
It's certainly Butcher this season.
Yeah.
Other seasons he's been more composed and better at judging things. This season he's been rash.
You can be aggressive and still be fair. I think Sutton proves that most of the time. I think Ingram does as well. I think Ingram stays the right side of the aggressive, and I think Turkington does most of the time as well, to be honest with you.
I don't think Rowbottom's been overly aggressive this season, but I think he's pulled some good moves as well.
You can race well without having to punt the other person off, and you just look at it and you think that has Butcher got the raw pace and ability to be a champion? Yes, I genuinely think he does.
Yeah.
Will he be champion with some of the things we've seen this season? No.
No, he's certainly going to struggle. Chilton, again, had a fairly consistent race, staying out of trouble, finished 8th overall. Goff, decent race as well, moved from 17th up to 11th. Starting to show a little bit of what it was like earlier in the season, isn't he?
Bit too little too late though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was good to see the hard car of Goff a bit more sort of towards the front, but I mean, yeah, and what more was there to say? It wasn't a commanding performance.
In contrary to Butcher's performance, Sam Smelt went from 20th to 13th in this race. Now, I know we've had a fair few retirements, but that still is a really good effort. He managed to finish ahead of Osborne and Boardley and Jack Sears in that race.
Yeah, I think there's been green shoots for Smelt all year. There's pace there. Obviously, he's got quite a good car beneath him as well.
Yes. Although he doesn't always show it.
No, and ultimately, this is his best result of the season, yes. It's been coming, to be honest. It has been coming. But I would say it's been a slightly disappointing season for him overall.
Yeah, so Cook took home the win from Dan Lloyd in second, Shedden in third, who didn't really trouble Lloyd in the end. Turkington fourth was the best that he could muster.
He got behind Rowbottom as well and just didn't... you've got not a rookie. Rookie's harsh on Rowbottom, but you've got a driver in their second season with no skin in the fight. He didn't put any pressure on him at all.
He got past Rowbottom.
Shedden, sorry. Okay, but it took him a while to get past Rowbottom.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, and when he finally cleared Rowbottom, he didn't put any pressure on Shedden at all.
No.
A driver who's not a rookie, but in his first season back for a while. Racing's changed around Gordon Shedden. Okay, I understand you don't necessarily want to go toe-to-toe with Shedden, but he's got nothing in the fight. He's got no skin in this. I don't think he's going to make it.
And Sutton was just sitting there in sixth, watching what Turkington was doing, and if he needed to make the move, you always felt that he could.
Yeah, I mean, he did. Sutton got right back onto the back of Rowbottom at points and just filled his mirrors and was basically saying, by the way, I'm here.
Yep.
I was just surprised that for Turkington, if had he launched one down the inside of Shedden and got it wrong, so what?
Yeah, I agree. Shall we move on to race 3?
Well, we should before we do confirm that this result meant that Sutton was the champion.
Yep.
He could no longer be caught, and a very commanding drive and a very emotional Sutton on the way back through.
Yes, he was blubbering a bit, wasn't he?
I think he's found it really hard to drive this way this year. And that's what he's alluded to on the warm down lap, is that he's had to change his approach, and it's been really hard because he wants to race and he wants to, drive it like he stole it.
And we certainly saw that in race 3.
Yeah, exactly, which we'll get to now.
Race 2.
Well, Ash Sutton wrapped up the title and the season in style, taking his 5th win of the season, which put him level with Josh Cook. The ball drawn out of the hat was done by Dan Camish. Congratulations to him.
Oh, was it?
He was, yeah.
I missed that.
Triple Porsche champion now, and second most successful driver in terms of race wins, still behind Tim Harvey, although if he stays in the sport you feel that will come down. Camish actually only won I think 2 or 3 races this year.
Yeah, but very consistent, which is what we saw from him when he was in Tours.
Consistent, and also Harry King happens a lot in the Porsches.
He has this year, hasn't he? Yeah.
He happened a lot. But yeah, Camish pulled out the ball. He did joke about pulling out one to put Turkington on pole, which I thought was quite funny. But he pulled out ball number 9, which meant that it was Tom Chilton Stephen Jelly even on pole, with Tom Chilton on the front row as well.
I was biting my nails at this point with you having predicted a Jelly win or someone to take their first win. Both Chilton and Jelly having not done that yet.
Could have been worse. Could have been biting your daughter's toes.
I mean, we don't need to talk about Paul Scholes, do we? How did race 3 go down then?
Race 3 was why people love the touring cars.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. I mean, where do you even start? It was...
Sutton was let loose, basically. Rabid Dog wanted to get to the front.
And if he ended up in the pit wall, it really didn't matter.
No, it didn't. It really didn't. The amount of... He had a brilliant start, first of all.
Well, I don't know how they set the car because they were playing solitaire on the grid. Did you see this?
No.
So they have the laptops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had the laptop on top of his car, and the camera zoomed in. They're playing. His engineer was playing solitaire.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Superb.
Brilliant. He had a fantastic start, as you would expect from a rear-wheel drive car in the hands of Ash Sutton, and there was kind of no looking back. He made mincemeat of Tom Chilton on the opening lap. And then Jelly didn't put up too much of a fight either, did he?
No, he opened the door, coming out of clearways and got him into Paddock Hill Bend, a classic move that Sutton has pulled off time and time again.
I think he started with the lights on, making sure everybody knew that he was coming through, but as soon as he got past Jelly, he switched them off.
Yeah.
And it was just like cruising home. One driver of note, though, Dan Rowbottom. I thought he had an excellent race 3.
Yeah, well,
he looked really racy.
Yeah, he did. And it's been a good season for Rowbottom. Obviously, we're going to come to the season review later on with separate pods, but a lot of people, I think to a degree, including us, wrote him off at the start of the year, and he's actually had a really strong year. And he did well here. And to finish only 1.3 seconds behind Ash, who was basically just taking the mickey at this point, it was pretty impressive still. And Tom Ingram from 12th to 3rd. That car without weight is something else, isn't it?
It's scary, isn't it? The fact that there is so much of a difference between the two cars. It's like driving 2 different cars.
Yes, it is.
Jake Hill also had a good run from 10th up to 4th, again with hardly any weight, I think only 9 kilos. But he was looking racy as well, although had a little coming together with Jelly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fairly similar to the Chilton on Jackson. And yeah, it was
Hill of old.
Yes, it was.
But it's race 3, so you can forgive. Well, I think you can forgive them.
Yeah, the stewards had already gone home by that point.
Yeah, it's interesting that there are no penalties in race 3, which is hilarious because any other race, I think they'd all be in the bus, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Turkington got turned around and had what looked to be a broken toe link with some help from Butcher.
Tom Chilton, he was battling with Chilton at the time. Chilton was up the inside of him into Druids because it's the toe link on the right-hand side of the car that breaks, whereas Butcher gives him a little tap into Graham Hill on the left-hand side, which sends him spinning.
Talking of toe links, I forgot to mention race 2. Sutton reckons he had a damaged toe link in race 2, which also accounts for why he wasn't quite as
yes, I heard that
speedy.
as well.
Yeah. But yeah, Turkington obviously didn't end his season as he would have hoped, and actually this gave Josh Cook a real chance of snatching second, which is crazy considering how far back he was. I mean, at the risk of you laughing at me, I do kind of feel sorry for Cook this weekend because he has done practically everything you could have ever asked him to do.
Yeah, he has. Because even in race 3 here, he's finished 5th with full weight on board. He's made up 4 places. Yeah. You can't really ask for much more, can you?
But if you could do these kind of weekends more often, I'm not saying double wing, but to get.
Well, that seems to be how his weekends
it.
go.
Yeah.
He gets double wins.
But why can't he qualify with the weight in the car then?
Don't know.
If you could just do this more often.
Yeah.
And that's my frustration with him, as I've voiced before.
Yep.
Is the inconsistency, and it's the weekends like this that really make you just want to go. Why can't you do this week in, week out?
Talking of inconsistency, a certain Mr. Plato finished 10th.
Yeah, he
Nowhere for the rest of the weekend.
smelt a win.
Had an engine change before race 2, managed to miss the start, which we forgot to mention. He then came back and finished 18th overall because of the amount of drivers that fell away, and he got his lap back on Wilmot. And then he goes from 18th to 10th, and I don't think the cameras even picked him up.
No, I mean, it was better performance, but it doesn't hide the fact that it's been a really disappointing season for Plato. Well outside the top 10 in terms of the championship. Outscored, I think, by Lloyd as well over the season. I think Lloyd's outscored him in has outscored him in podiums.
Yep.
And if you had to pick one driver for next year, if you're at PMR, how can you look? And it's done on pure ability and not money, etc. How can you look past Lloyd?
Yeah, it's got to be. Ollie Jackson, after that horror show in race 2, had a really good recovery up to 11th, showing how much pace he has in that car, and especially at Brands.
He'd have taken a win this weekend and not been for race 2, and I'd have got an extra point.
Possibly.
It's best he's looked all season.
Yeah, I know.
Well, apart from his early podium in the year, actually.
Yeah. Chilton managed to hold firm in 6th after the little coming together with Turkington. Shedden was non-existent in race 3, finished 7th overall. Goff was fairly strong, finished 8th with no weight in the car.
And Lloyd fell back down the order a fair way with big weight in the car. Of course, he'd already been put fairly far back because of the reverse grid. So
yes, yeah.
The cars that came past him were weightless, and he did keep behind him comfortably Taylor Smith and Oliphant, who...
I was going to say, the other two drivers that went out in race 2 along with Jackson, being Oliphant and Morgan, managed to recover to 15th and 16th. Yeah, it's a bit meh.
Has he been the most disappointing driver of the year?
He's certainly been the unluckiest. Certainly been the unluckiest. The amount of incidents. I'd like to know what the bill is for all his parts this season.
Aye.
It must be a big one from Alton.
Yeah.
That smack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I do think he is, one of the biggest disappointments of the year, I think, for me.
Mitchell was to have a fairly hairy moment in this race, going down to what we now know as Camish Corner, I think called Hawthorns, and he managed to put it in the barrier, which brought out a safety car.
Yes, which gave the field a chance to sort of bunch back up and race again for a little bit, but yeah, it kind of... The only other interesting thing of note was that Ingram found that he had a small disco on board to the the Hyundai.
I really do like those lights.
Yeah, I know, because you're a yob.
Why?
Because you've got the same in your car. You like to have them on, not to flash you, but the high intensity brightness. You're a yob.
No, it's just the fact that I wonder whether they've got that as a specific setting in the car.
I think
to
Ingram
try
was
and
bored. And he's going, oh,
to try and distract drivers.
This button does that. Oh, okay. And where's the laser cannons? Oh.
He'd be a brilliant Bond then, wouldn't he?
No, he doesn't shut up, so he wouldn't be a good Bond at all. You shoot him in the arm, he'd still be smiling, wouldn't he? Bless him. So, yeah, it was quite interesting. It's unusual to see Ingram employ what you might call bully boy tactics, but...
Oh, you got to try everything. He was really trying hard to get onto the back of Robot and pass him.
It was dark as well.
So dark. The cameras on the telly do not do it justice.
No, they don't.
At all. But yeah, I think you're about to say bring back night races, aren't you?
Bring on night races. How cool was it?
I'd love to see it at the end of the season for that final race, or even just a one-off race at the end of the season to be a night event.
Yeah, why not?
It'd be brilliant.
You do it if you're worried about the fans, do it on a Saturday night.
Yeah, or do it at somewhere where there's decent lighting in the stands and decent infrastructure, maybe like Silverstone, dare I say it.
Well, and also Snetterton holds 24-hour events. There's no reason it couldn't be done at Snetterton. You know.
Yeah, Silverstone, Donington and Snet, I think, all hold 24-hour events.
Yeah,
or certainly endurance into the night events.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, Snetterton did the 24 hours.
Two CVs.
Two CVs, don't they? So you could do it there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to be doing a whole night race. It's going to be just 20 laps in the dark, which I think is... How cool is that?
That would be excellent, yeah.
And then there's a party afterwards in the campsite. Brilliant.
Put on by Rick Parfitt.
Yeah,
he knows how to throw a party, doesn't he?
Apparently so.
Unfortunately, he didn't finish this race. He was out before it all started.
Well, he then got back in the car, and then I think he did a lap, and then he had to come back in again. But yeah,
didn't even do a lap, mate.
Did not. Well,
no.
there you go.
But yeah, so the season finished. Sutton did plenty of burnouts coming into the pits.
It'd been interesting if you failed the ride check because of that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I said that to you at the track, didn't I?
Although, to be fair, again, the marshals have gone home. Was like,
I was going to say, I'm not sure they even scrutineered the cars after race 3. They just wanted everything done. They brought out the podium truck onto the circuit, as they do at the final round, and they were able to celebrate in front of the fans.
Once Sutton had punched the living daylights out of his roof.
I think that was just from him standing on it.
It was just standing on it.
Yeah, so he gets out of the car, he stands on top of the roof. The dodgy bit is he steps on the windscreen and then steps down onto the bonnet. I was just waiting for that windscreen to go.
Or from just accidentally put his foot straight through the bonnet onto a hot part of the engine. I mean, yeah.
Oh dear. But he was certainly enjoying himself in race 3, wasn't he?
And why not? Why not? A very worthy champion. The cuffs were off. So, yeah, that's kind of the weekend. Jelly would end up in 24th after incident after incident. And to be fair to Jelly, wasn't really his fault this weekend. No, and he had good pace.
Yeah, could have won a race. Would have got you a few points, wouldn't he?
Didn't matter in the end, though, did it?
No, shut up.
Shall we do the driver grades and prediction update then?
Yes, certainly. Let's get into it.